Hello and welcome. If you're watching this video, then it's quite likely that you've chosen to partner with Westcoast and Microsoft in order to grow your business. And whilst it may be clear that that's a good decision and you can get a lot out of that, it's not always entirely clear how you can leverage some of the less well-known assets of that relationship. This video is going to cover some of the things you need to know in order to get the best out of that partnership, and our focus today is on the partner incentive experience, or the PIEX for short. And before we go too much further, let me introduce myself. My name is James Wilson. I'm Head of Learning and Development for a company known as the Readiness Company. We've been partnering with both Microsoft and Westcoast for years, and this is a great chance to talk about what Microsoft and Westcoast can do for you. So let's begin. The plan for today, in brief, is to try and address the questions that we get asked a lot in one place, offering some answers, but also the deeper resources that you might need to refer to for support as you go through the process of registering to receive the incentives. Now, typically the questions we get are around eligibility. What can I get? How do you get it? What is it? Those often lead on to some of the necessities of that process, things like competencies, and I'll explain what those are, how those impact you as we go through the session. Then there's some guidance about the actual process of registering, as well as some insight into the types of incentives that you can expect to benefit from. Lastly, we'll outline some useful next steps that you can follow, and also some places that you can go to get help if you need those in an ongoing sense. So if you're eligible to join the Partner Incentive Experience, then you'll simply use the email invitation that you get sent by Microsoft to register and start taking advantage. Don't worry if you haven't had that email yet. I'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. And actually, you can even request that email by contacting Microsoft, and I'll give you the email address for that a little bit later on. But let's come back to eligibility. To be eligible, you need to be a silver or gold competency partner. Let's look at the partner membership types first, and to help clear up any questions then that might sort of bring up. So firstly, the first network type is network members. So free membership, it allows you to get access to resources like marketing, business planning, training, those kind of examples. There's almost no commitment required from you other than the time taken to set up the account. The next level of membership is to become a MAP or a Microsoft Action Pack partner. That has a cost. It has an annual subscription cost of £350, and it includes everything that you would have found in the network member benefits, as well as more, including free software licenses, developer tools, and even some pre and post sale support options. Lastly, then, Microsoft's most elite partners earn competencies, and with them, recognition of their skill, their expertise in delivering specialized solutions. And once you're known as a competency partner, that status includes everything we already discussed, as well as yet more access to software licenses, more access to development tools, more advice and support, including unlimited signature support on chosen areas of competency specialization. So if you focus on a cloud-based product like Azure, as an example, you can get a signature support for that technology to help you deliver that service to your customers. And it includes recognition really as well in the Microsoft referral scheme for your chosen competencies. That may help you to reach more customers. And it's a big brand differentiator as well, giving you real recognition for the work that you're doing. Now, if you want to be a competency partner, there are two different tiers, the silver and gold competency partnership. And there are some requirements in order to be eligible to kind of receive that status. And the first is the financial commitment. So if you want to be a silver partner, there's an annual cost at the time of recording, that's £1,300 for silver, and it's £3,000 per annum for gold. And you'd also be required to earn some customer references as well based on executions that you've carried out, and those act as a form of proof of that execution. 3 are required for silver, and it's 5 for gold. And the next thing on the list is essentially sort of proof of technical capability. And in order to sort of finalize your eligibility, you'll need to complete business focused competency assessments, tests, if you like, 1 for silver and 2 for gold in order to be eligible. Alternatively, you might have technical members of your business that pass the Microsoft exams that connect to the competencies that you want to achieve. If you've got a single technical professional, that would make you eligible for silver level status, and two technical professionals would be what's required for gold. That's great if you've got technicians that already have Microsoft certifications in the topics that you're looking to pursue. If you have done something in relation to this, you may not remember what it is, but you might believe that you've already started this journey out, you've done some steps of this process. It is possible to sign into your account on the Microsoft Partner Network and check your account status to see where you are. You can also see who in your organization looks after your MPN members within your business. That's assuming it isn't you, of course. If it is you, and actually you need to know, well, how do I register my organization in the first place? Don't worry, I'll come on to that in just a moment. I'm aware I'm talking about lots of links, that sort of stuff as well, and we'll do our best to make sure you've got access to those in the notes, that sort of thing too. Okay, now coming back to competencies, let's assume for a moment that you are unfamiliar with that term. If so, what are they? So competencies, as I say, they allow your organization to demonstrate your technical capability to deliver Microsoft solutions. Microsoft competencies are designed to meet your customers' needs and showcase your expertise to prospective customers. They come with a whole host of benefits in their own right for your organization. And there are lots of different competency categories. So that means there's a very good chance that whatever you do as an organization, whatever your heritage, wherever your specializations may be, wherever you'd like to focus in the future and sort of set your strategy towards, it's very likely that there's a competency or a set of competencies that would help to grow that part of your business and allow you to achieve recognition for the work that you are putting into it. At the time of kind of recording, the complete competency list looks a bit like this. There's lots of different categories: application development, ISV, cloud platform and infrastructure, data management, analytics, mobility, business apps, and productivity. And before we go too far into those, I'd like to just thin this list down a little bit by showing you the cloud-based competencies, the ones that sort of attract additional attention through the CSP program, which you might be transacting through Westcoast. So Microsoft do provide updates to this program, and it's entirely possible over the course of time as well that competencies may be retired from the program, and there are ways that you can learn about that. I'll come on to that in just a moment. So let's look at these cloud-based competencies, this short list, if you like. So first things first, it doesn't mean you can't earn other competencies if you feel really strongly that something not shown here reflects your business ambitions. But if you want to quickly align to where the incentives are greatest, then these competencies may be worth consideration. So if you see something here that catches your eye, you may well want to learn more about what achieving that competency would entail. And all of that information can be covered at the website shown here, partner.microsoft.com. When you go through to that, it may not be entirely obvious how you work your way through that. So let me just give you an example of what that journey looks like. We'll take Azure from the cloud platform and infrastructure category and just use that as an example. So if we were to go through to that partner.microsoft.com site, that would bring you to a website that looks a lot like this. And you can see up towards the top of the screen where the green arrow is, there's a button here that says membership. And if we select that membership button, that will take us through to the membership page. Now, on that page, there's a little black bar, and that runs along the top. And one of the options here is a button that says how it works. And there's a little arrow next to that, and you click that, it will drop down some options so you can get an overview of some of those different bits of information. The piece we're interested in here is competencies, and that will take you through to where all the currently active competencies live. There are details as to the categories and the requirements for them, as well as an overview of the competencies that might be retiring too. That looks a bit like this. So if you're not sure where to start, this is a good place to get information so you can look at the requirements and what's necessary to achieve competencies, what the rewards for those competencies might be. This is a pretty good resource for that. If you're totally lost and you're not sure where to start, you kind of you need to know a bit more about these different technologies. Have a chat with your Westcoast account manager. You can talk about potentially upcoming training events or things like that, where maybe you can go and learn a little bit more about these without having to commit a huge amount of time into kind of understanding too deeply what they are at this stage. So that may allow you to decide a little more where you want to focus your energy as a tip. Now, on this particular page, there's a button along the top here, if I kind of scroll into this portal a bit more, this is the cloud platform and infrastructure category. This is where that Azure example lived. And on this part of the page, you can see I've selected that tab at the top, the cloud platform and infrastructure tab. And within it, I then get the information of the relevant competencies. There's only Azure within this bracket, if you like. And there's a button here that's labeled competency details. And clicking that will take me through to a slightly more detailed page. There's quite a lot of info here, so I can keep this as high level as I can, but essentially this will give me two more tabs. One of those is going to tell me some of the benefits that I might be entitled to if I work towards and achieve this competency. And you can see listed here things like support. Signature support is included. I get access to Azure credit as well, thousands of dollars in some cases of Azure credit that I can get access to throughout the course of the year in order to help sort of try out my own services or potentially look at things like proof of concept or whatever. And I get access to things like Visual Studio licenses too if I want to start looking at developing my own solutions, my own applications, those sort of things using the best tools that are available from Microsoft. So the competency benefits that are available on this tab gives you a really good comprehensive list of what you stand to get out of it if you work towards it. There's also the competency requirements tab as well. And I'll spare you going through this in too much detail because it is pretty comprehensive, but it gives you step by step. Here is exactly what you need to achieve in order to obtain the competency. And it will talk to you about things like the customer references. It will talk to you about the exams and those kind of things that I talked about earlier. So it provides you with a clear path about how you achieve those things. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the portal, and please do go and have a look for yourselves and have a play around, see what you think. Feel free to get in touch with us if you have any queries or questions. Um, but there's also an opportunity if perhaps you think you may not have registered at this stage, if you are not enrolled in the Microsoft partner network at all, then that would be a first step for you. So obviously there's registering for the partner incentive experience, but before you can do that, you have to be a part of the MPN. So if you think actually going right the way back, I don't remember ever doing this, and you feel it might be you that's responsible for doing that within your organization, that's not a massive problem either. And again, we can provide links to this and all that kind of stuff too. To enroll your organization in the MPN, you're going to need to just complete a few steps. These are kind of detailed here, but just for the purpose of clarity, you will need to provide your organization's contact information. That's kind of step one, no problem. And you need to sign the Microsoft Partner Network legal agreement for your organization as well. And that agreement can be viewed online. So before you even go through the process, you can sort of take that away, talk to anybody you need to, and just make sure you're happy with all of that before you even begin the enrollment process. If you're happy and you continue, then yep, you complete your individual profile, then you complete your organizational profile, and that covers things like your focus, your services, customer types, technologies, that kind of thing, and allows you to start that sort of process up. You can look through all the questions again prior to enrolling. So all of this information is available to kind of take away and consider before you start the enrollment process. But if you're happy with what you see, yeah, begin enrollment, start that process out. Let's give you an idea of some of the examples of incentives that have been running so that you know kind of what this might actually mean for you. I'm deliberately going to avoid going into too much detail about currently active incentives because at the time of recording, those will be current, but by the time you watch this video, there's a possibility those might have expired. So instead, let's just quickly look at the types of incentives that are typically run and what they mean. So there are incremental margin incentives. Well, actually, let me go back a step because I suppose it's useful to split this out between global and local incentives. There are subtle differences between how they work, how often they appear, that kind of stuff. But a typical example would be an incremental margin incentive. As the name suggests, they reward you with increased margin for selling products that have got a particular incentive focus. And those uplifts can be quite significant. They do vary wildly, but as an indication, it's not terribly rare to see bonus margins of 5, 10, or 20% being added to focused products that Microsoft are keen to incentivize. So they can really help to add extra value for what you're trying to position. There are rewards that are consumption based, and products like Azure are good examples of They often have these consumption-based incentives attached to them, especially if you're transacting those services through the CSP program. So the more your customers use, the more you stand to sort of earn in incentives. There's normally a cap on that eventually, but they're pretty high. So those can be quite interesting too. Global incentives are set by Microsoft's head office and tend to be rolled out globally, as the name implies. They tend not to do that too often, so a couple of times a year, 6 to 12 months is a typical duration for those. And those are supplemented then with local incentives. And those are normally set by a Microsoft region, such as EMEA or the UK. They often match up to particular focus products as well that are driving strategic growth. So you can make an argument that a partner that focuses on the incentivized products may also gain the advantage of a certain amount of specialization, because as the incentive is somewhat telling you that a particular product is maybe in need of a boost in the market, that might mean less competition for that business as well. If there was a drive on, for instance, something like Power BI or Dynamics 365, you may well find signing bonuses for bringing those customers on board. But you might also find similar consumption benefits as well for utilizing those services discussed, things we talked about on the global campaigns. Those local incentives those can vary a lot, sorry, but they typically appear a little more frequently, tend to have shorter durations than their global counterparts. There's one example I will run you through in a bit more detail, because we typically see information like this being provided. So this is an example of the CSP Indirect Reseller incentive that ran earlier this year. I've been very kind of cagey around dates and things that run. But typically, you find as you head towards the summer, new stuff comes out. At the time of recording, we're getting towards that sort of period where we might see new stuff coming along. So better to understand generally what these might look like than rather the detail at the moment. But if we focus on eligibility for a moment, what you can see here is sort of recognition of this subtle change. So you have to have an active MPM membership, and that's pretty common. But then you also need to attain one of these defined competencies within the time frame. It's the time frame that this ran, just purely for argument's sake, was up to the 30th of June 2018. And that meant that if you could achieve the competencies, then you could be eligible for increased incentives around products that were being driven. Now, there's a link here, or there's two links here, in fact, that you can see at the bottom. And this kind of information is made available to partners pretty frequently. I'm just going to kind of drag this into shot so you can have a look at this. So there is sort of a PDF guide that you can see here, which would sort of provide you with all the detail that you need to understand that program and how it works. The other link that's on here, apart from the CSP Indirect Reseller Incentive Guide, is the Partner Incentive Experience Guide. And that's a really comprehensive document that talks to you about what the PIEX is, how you can be eligible for it, and how you go about signing up, that sort of thing. So those resources, again, they're available to you. I won't go through them all because, quite frankly, that's a lot of information, but there's really good supporting resource available to you if you have any questions whilst you're going through this process. Okay, let's have a look at some of the other support that might be available to you as well. So I guess it's worth noting that there's a whole support channel. There's first tier and second tier support for this program. It's called the OCI in this case, the online channel incentive, but that's absolutely fine for these kind of inquiries. And actually, I talked to you earlier about how you can actually request an invite to the program if you believe you should be eligible already. And this email address, ociemea@microsoft.com, that's the right email address to do that. It's the first line support email for this program. I'll call out this little note here. Protocol is to use first line support before you escalate to second line support. And when contacting, there are some points here at the bottom of the screen that you can add into the inquiry to make sure that those are dealt with as quickly and as effectively as possible. Okay, so again, handy screenshot there for some email addresses and so forth to talk about different campaigns and so forth. And that kind of leads me on to a kind of a call to action, if you like. I guess coming away from this, what we'd really like to see people do is if you haven't already done so, please register with the MPN. It doesn't have to cost you anything at this point, but you're missing out on resources, whether that's training materials, marketing materials, events, guidance, whatever it may be. There's a whole host of stuff there, and yeah, you can get a lot out of that. If you want to focus on a competency path, that's really where your partnership with Westcoast can come to value as well, because it's very often the case that training events are run to help you get familiarity with not just how you sell products, but how you achieve technical capabilities with those products as well. So if you want support around that, please talk to your Westcoast account managers, to the Westcoast team who can help with that as well. If you've decided on a competency path, you're working your way towards that, you believe you're eligible then to take advantage of these incentives, and for whatever reason you're not yet registered on the PIEX, the partner incentives, contact us, contact Microsoft, ocimea@microsoft.com, request that invitation, we can send that out, you can start that registration process. Check through all the documentation, make sure you're happy with that, go through the registration. Once you've done that, then yeah, it is pretty straightforward. You can start to sell those services through CSP and then be recognized for that, earn your rewards. So it sounds like a lot of work. There's a few hoops to jump through, and that's true, certainly. There's only stuff that you have to do once, right? And thereafter, you then get the benefit of this. So well worth setting some time aside just to go through this with your team, make sure if you are eligible for this, or if you could become eligible for this, that you do the work, get that stuff under your belt, and then, yeah, definitely collect the rewards that you are due for the great work that you do for the Microsoft community. That completes the webinar for today. Thank you very much indeed for your time. If you've got any queries or questions, feel free to drop us an email. You can reach us at generalemail@westcoast.co.uk. Those can be forwarded on. If you want to go directly to the Microsoft team, again, the email address was earlier, ociemea@microsoft.com. Will allow you to get in touch with the first line support team for the incentives resources as well. So once again, thank you very much indeed for your time. I hope you found this useful, and please let us know if you'd like to know more. Thanks very much indeed. Bye-bye.